Not bad, not bad. And once we have looked at how we can implement the course package to fix our error, now let's take a look at the second approach, the proxy. And here's why. You see, at the moment, once we host this somewhere, the server I'm talking about, once we push this up to production, any front-end application can access the data, the API. And there's times when you want that. For example, I have course API, which essentially is a resource for all my students in React course and JavaScript course. And it's just a bunch of straight up endpoints where you can get some JSON data. So we're building the project, and then in order to practice on how to fetch data in JavaScript or in React, we're hitting these APIs. And of course, this one, yes, I want this one to be publicly available. But when we're talking about our Jobify one, if we think about it, do we really want the backend, the server, to be accessible from anywhere? Like, is there any need, or only our front-end application should have access to our API? And of course, the answer is, well, it kind of doesn't make sense that any front-end application can access our API. Only our front-end application needs to have access to that. So that's point number one. And if you're familiar with course, you're probably thinking, okay, buddy, you don't know what you're talking about. In the course, you can set up the origin, so we can pass here some kind of configuration option where only, let's say, our front end can access the code. And you're 100% correct. You can set up the config with origin where you explicitly say which domain has access to your data. But the reason why we're going to go with the proxy option is because it's going to solve more than just this. It essentially will also allow us not to use the full URLs in the front-end application. So that's the second point, where I don't want to use my full URL when I'm building the front-end application. I mean, I don't want to go with localhost 5000 and then refactor it to whatever production one. Again, you can make an argument that you can set it up as a variable, yada, 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 yada. That's not the point. The idea is that I want to do something like this, where I go with /, especially if we keep something in mind. Eventually, and I'm purposely not covering this in great detail, but eventually we'll use build script to build our production ready React application. It's just going to be a bunch of static assets. And then on the server, we'll use express static to serve it as a static asset. And what that means, we can simply use /. But at the moment, we cannot do that in the development, correct? Again, I'm skipping a little bit ahead, but I'm not covering more details on purpose because I don't want you to confuse. What I want you to understand is that we solve both of our issues. First, in the front end, we'll be able to use code like this, where we just go with / and whatever is the endpoint, whether that is auth, whether that is jobs, and hopefully you get the gist. That's number one. And second, we won't need to use the course package on our server altogether, because eventually our front-end application, like I said, is going to be hosted on our server anyway. It's going to be our static asset. So it will have full access to the API.